How's it going, YouTube? My name's Gaspardicus, and welcome to my new channel. I've been lurking around the Magic YouTube community for a little over a year now, watching almost anything that comes out that's related to the game. And I figured that now that I have my numbers ironed out for my main deck, it will be a good time to start producing content. I wanted to start with my Simic Midrange build for Standard. So I hope you guys like it. Feel free to leave any comments on how to improve the deck in the comments. And yeah, let's start off with the mana base. I'm running 4 breeding pools because it is a 2-color standard deck, and shocklands are awesome. Running 4 Temple of Mystery because scrying is very, very fun, very great. Running 2 Nykthos. It is a very creature-heavy build, so devotion gets pretty high, and this can get us tons of mana. And I'm running 8 basic forests. The deck's quite a bit heavier into green than it is into blue, and I found 8's a pretty solid number. And 5 basic islands, putting us at 23 lands. For the creature base, for the 1-drops, there's 4 Elvish Mystics. The curve is pretty high, so having Mandadorics as often as possible is nice. And 4 Sylvan Caryatids. This was going to be Kior's follower, and it was for a while, but I found that it was dying far too often to like Bile Blight and Magma Jet and Shock and stuff like that. And when people mess with my mana, the deck tends to suffer quite a bit. So this just was a lot more reliable. Plus, being easier to cast is very relevant. And then 4 Courser of Kruphix. As a 3-mana 2/4, it's pretty good against aggro, but giving us so much card advantage, letting us hit our land drops more consistently and gaining us life, this card just has too much value to not run. It's what makes the deck function, honestly. The deck wasn't very great before Born of the Gods came out, but this was definitely the missing card. That it needed to be really good. Then I'm running 3 Boon Satyr. This is the most recent addition to the deck. I was running a couple Sylvan Primordials before, but they just weren't coming out consistently enough. And this guy just has so much versatility, and I'm loving him in this build. 3 mana 4/2 Flash. He is great as a combat trick. He comes in and blocks when your opponent's not expecting it. You can bestow him pretty easily in this deck with the amount of ramp that we have to get in those last few points of damage. He's good against control decks because if you have him bestowed on a creature and they play their Supreme Verdict, you still have a creature afterwards, and sometimes that 4 power is all you need to push through and win. And then there's 3 Polukranos World Eater. As a 4 mana 5/5, he's great. As a 4 mana 5/5 that kills stuff, he is phenomenal. Our mana gets pretty out of hand sometimes with Nykthos, and you can Monstrous him for X equals 3 to 5 pretty consistently in the late game. And in early game, just a 4 mana 5/5 is good enough on its own. In the 5-drop slot, we're running 3 Prophet of Kruphix. As a 5 mana 2/3, it's pretty bad, but being able to flash in, being able to take an extra turn essentially, or take your turn on your opponent's turn, is very, very good. There's in the 6-drops especially, there's quite a bit of draw power and card advantage, and being able to get cards into your hand and then dump them out as fast as possible and just win the next turn is so good. Yeah. There's some scary plays after that card. One of which being Colonian Hydra. Turn 1 Elvish Mystic, turn 2 Caryatid, turn 3 Prophet into Colonian Hydra, swing 8 on turn 4, or swing 10 on turn 4, is just really, really devastating most of the time. He is pretty easy to kill, but he is still probably the best finisher in the deck. I can't think of a quicker clock in Standard right now than a 2-swing clock. He's just such a great card. If I can land him, if I can resolve him and then protect him, it's pretty much going to be game over. And playing at the end of an opponent's turn just makes him that much better. And in the 6-drops, there are 2 Prime Speaker Zaganas. After a Pelucranos or a Colonian Hydra or even just a Boon Satyr, this card is phenomenal. Even if it's just 6 mana for a 5/5 that draws 5 cards, that is enough to win the game on its own most of the time. And if there's a Colonian Hydra on board and it attacks with her on board, she gets even bigger, and it's not good for your opponent if she resolves. On an empty board, she's not as great, which is why I sometimes side her out against control if they're running plenty of board wipes. But she's still an excellent card to have in the deck, and is one of the main reasons for splashing blue. Over to the non-creature spells. There are 3 Simic Charms. Each mode on this card is relevant. The Giant Growth ability is good for combat tricks, it's good for punching through final damage, and it's just a nice surprise to have. The Unsummon ability is really good for slowing the opponent down. It can bounce a Master of Waves when there are a bunch of tokens on board, and shut mono blue down pretty quickly for a turn. Sometimes a turn is all you need, honestly. And if you have 2 mana up and someone casts a Supreme Verdict, you can save your own creature by bouncing it to your hand. And the Hexproof is probably the most relevant ability. Notice that it gives all permanents Hexproof, not all creatures. So not only does it protect all of our creatures from spot removal, but it protects Planeswalkers from Hero's Downfall and the like as well. And then we have 2 Cyclonic Rifts. As a 2 mana tempo bounce spell type thing, it's pretty good, but as a 7 mana win the game spell, it is phenomenal. 7 mana, as I said before, is really easy to get in this deck. And once you cast this card, if you have any creatures on board, it's probably going to be game. Such a good card. Another primary reason for splashing blue. And I mentioned Planeswalkers before, and shouldn't be a surprise that I'm running 3 Kiora, the Crashing Wave. Her +1 ability isn't as great as her others, but it is the one I use most frequently. It stops some decks like the Orzhov deck that's running around with Blood Barons and Desecration Demons. It stops them pretty hard because sometimes they only have 1 or 2 creatures on board, and being able to shut one of them down is phenomenal. So that +1 ability has a lot of relevance. Her -1 is great with Courser of Kruphix. Makes it a lot easier to play 2 lands a turn, therefore gaining 2 life a turn. And with Scry and stuff like that, she just makes card advantage. So she just gives so much more card advantage than she would without either of the 2. And her -5 might as well just win the game. 9/9 Kraken every turn is going to be very, very hard for anything to deal with. And yeah, not much else to say about her other than she is phenomenal. And the last card in the main deck is a 2 of Garruk, Caller of Beasts. 6 mana, not too hard. And his +1 usually will draw us 2 to 3 cards. His -3 is kind of relevant, his -7 is kind of relevant. But I do use them from time to time. We're mainly running him for his +1 ability to draw tons of cards. And once we draw all those cards, if there's a Prophet of Kruphix on board, we could probably play at least 2 of them before our next turn. And yeah, he just gives a lot of value to the deck. And that's about it for the main deck. We'll move this out of the way, and I'll talk about the sideboard briefly. Okay. It should be no surprise that I'm running 3 Mistcutter Hydras. Comes in against anything with blue in it. Pretty self-explanatory, can't be countered pro-blue. He's very, very hard for control to deal with. He's hard for mono-blue devotion to deal with, and he's just overall great card. Then we have 2 Unravel the Aether. This card comes in also against mono-blue and control. It deals with Thassa, namely, and hits Detention Spheres as well. So if they Detention Sphere my Garruk or anything, I can shuffle it away and get my Planeswalker back or my creature back. And yeah, it's kind of a counter removal spell. As is Silver Primordial, but it's a 7 mana version that is also a 6/8 reach. I don't really use him to blow up lands often unless they have Underworld connections on them. This guy does come in against mono black, by the way, for the reach to deal with Desecration Demon, and for the exact reason that I just said, being able to blow up a swamp with an Underworld connections. Yeah, he also hits Attention Sphere. He's just an all-around great card for stuff that needs to get away as fast as possible. And then 2 Scavenging Ooze. Comes in against mono black, against control, against some aggro. He comes in fairly often, actually. As a 2-mana 2/2, he's alright. But being able to exile either my own creatures or an opponent's to make him bigger, gaining me more life is just so much value. If they're board wiping nonstop, I can play him late game, gain some life back, get a dude. And yeah, he's a good late game card and a good early game card to stall out against aggro. There's also 1 Aetherling in the sideboard. Excuse me. There's also 1 Aetherling in the sideboard to deal with the control matches. If he resolves, he's just as hard for them to deal with as he is for me to deal with. And he can help us win the race fairly easily, especially if we can get him out a turn or 2 sooner than they play theirs, with some Mana Dorks or something. Then there's 2 Rapid Hybridization. This card's in here mainly to deal with Obzedat. Obzedat gives me a lot of trouble, especially because the deck that he's in runs a lot of removal that can deal with the creatures that would block him. So this, well, a vanilla 3/3 is a lot easier to deal with than a 5/5 that can only be killed by instant speed removal. So, yeah. Mostly for Obzedat, but comes in against some other things as well. Can't really think of many at the moment. Mostly in her for Obzedat. Then 1 more Cyclonic Rift for against aggro decks. Sometimes we just need an extra one in the main deck. Yeah. And last card is 2 Curse of the Swine. This is the card that I probably get the most questions about when I show off the deck. People don't seem to like it, but I do not see anything wrong with it. This card is phenomenal. On game day, I was playing against a green-white aggro deck, and I was able to top deck this card and cast it for X = 3, targeting 2 Voice of Resurgence and an Advent of the Worm token. And this, I can easily say that this is what won me the game. A 2/2 is not really too much for this deck to deal with. Even like a Courser of Kruphix or a Prophet of Kruphix can block it and kill it. A Sylvan Caryatid doesn't really care about it. Only thing that I don't want to block the token with is a Boon Satyr or an Elvish Mystic. And I've even debated putting this card in the main deck because it's just so good. Yeah, I love this card so much. And that's about it for the deck. It's been testing extremely well. On game day, I went 2-0 against green-white aggro. I went 2-1 against Esper Control, which wasn't entirely my deck doing well. It was his not working for him. He got mana screwed in the 3rd game. Round 3, I played against Jund Monsters, and that was a very cool deck, but I came in, I ended up going 2-0 against it. He almost had me both games, though. And last round, I played against a really awesome mono-green Charging Badger deck that was running like Swordwise Centaur and Aspect of Hydra and stuff, and it was just really cool. And he ended up getting me down to 1 life game 2, but he just couldn't draw any pump spells to get through, and I had enough of a board state to slow him down. And with Nykthos, I was able to produce 11 mana in 1 turn, which I used to play my Kiora, and -1 her to draw the Cyclonic Rift in the top of my deck, which I then overloaded to win the game. So, yeah, ended up going 4-0, and got this thing. So I'd say that the deck is performing pretty well. But I'm still open to any suggestions that you guys have. Leave them down in the comments below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and feel free to subscribe if you want more deck techs, and comment down below to see any kind of builds that you want to see. I play mostly Standard, but I also play some Commander. I could show you my Commander decks if that's something you guys are interested in. Or I could just keep doing Standard deck techs. This is my most expensive deck. Most of my other things are budget, like I have a budget mono green, budget mono red, budget Orzhov. So if any of those sound good to you guys, let me know in the comments below. And thank you guys for watching.